I welcome you all to the module 5 of the course titled Applied Positive Psychology. So this module 5 is about psychological strengths and assets. So this is the second lecture of this module, and overall this is lecture number 14. Now in this lecture number 14 we will have two parts. The part 1 will talk about Gallup strengthfinder, and the part 2 will be talking about another strength perspective, just to make each lecture a little shorter. So today we'll talk about lecture 14 part 1. So part 1 is about the Gallup strengthfinder. So this is another strength perspective, how to understand psychological strengths. So we'll talk about some of the concepts, some of the associated ideas related to this particular perspective, and some applied perspective regarding this. So just to give you a brief recap of the last lecture, that is lecture number 13, we talked about character strengths. That was the first lecture of this module. There we talked about what is the meaning of character strengths and why they are important, and in that context we talked about something called as a VIA classification of character strengths and virtues, where we elaborately discussed what are the different classification system and how can we classify human character strengths into the different categories, and what comes under each of these categories. So that is what we have discussed in the last lecture. Then we also talked about how character strengths are associated with happiness and well-being, and at the end we talked about how can we cultivate character strengths, what are the applied aspects to it. So today we'll be talking about the first part of this lecture. We will be focusing on Gallup strengthfinder, which is also called as a Clifton strengthfinder. So let's start today's lecture. Now Gallup strengthfinder, or which is also called as Clifton strengthfinder, this particular perspective is basically developed by two research scientists from Gallup organization. Their name is Clifton and Anderson in 2001. So that is why it is also called as a Clifton strengthfinder, this whole perspective. They attempted to understand what makes people excel in what they do through interviewing thousands of top performers across the globe. So their approach was to understand, or the objective of their whole research project was to understand what make people excel in what they do. Why some people perform very good in terms of performance. So that is what they were trying to understand. What are the characteristics of high performing people, particularly in the corporate sectors and so on. So they try to understand this question through interviewing thousands of top performers across globes in the different sectors of professions and so on. So out of this exercise, they came up with 34 most prevalent talent strength displayed specifically in the work setting. So if you look at this whole perspective, this is more in the context of work setting. This whole strength perspective called Gallup strengthfinder, this is more relevant in the work context. The earlier concept that we discussed, character strength, this is more of a general moral perspective. This is more of an work context, what strengths are more important, because this is more related to performance in the work situation. So out of this exercise, they came up with 34 most prevalent talents and strengths which are relevant in the context of performance and performance specifically in the work setting. So they have conceptualized strength in different ways than VIA classification. So their perspective is different from VIA classification that we discussed in the last lecture. So let us see how they are different. Now they use two terms. One is called talent, another is called as a strength. So this is one of the major distinction they made in the whole perspective. So according to Clifton and Anderson, the basis of a strength is a talent. So they said strength comes from talent of individuals. Now what is a talent? Talent is a naturally occurring pattern of thoughts, feelings or behaviors that can be productively applied to multiple areas. It's a capacity to do something. So what they are saying is, talent is a naturally occurring pattern. So they are saying talent is mostly the natural certain inborn capacities that people have. That capacities can reflect in thoughts, feelings and behavior. So naturally, when you are able to use those capacities productively in certain areas, that becomes your talent. This is basically, talent can be said in a very general sense as a capacity to do something. So if you have certain capacities which are more inborn in nature, that can be called as your talent. Now strength on the other hand is the ability to provide a consistent high level performance in a given activity. So when you are able to use that talent and consistently perform then it becomes a strength. Talent in itself may not lead you to high performance situation. A talent becomes strength only when you are able to consistently use that talent in a particular areas of activity. The strengths are produced when talents are refined with knowledge and skills. So that means a talent becomes strength when the talents are refined. How they are refined? They are refined with knowledge and skills. So if you gain and acquire knowledge around it, if you develop skills around the talent, then it becomes your strength and you are able to consistently use them. So they further said talents are like rough diamonds and strengths are like polished diamonds. So talents are raw things that we get, which may be certain inborn capacities, but they become strength when you are able to polish them, refine them with knowledge and skills, use them again and again. For example, ability to make instant connection with people can be a talent. So some people are good at making connection with people. This could be a natural talent they have. But this can become strength only when, but the ability to consistently build a network of supporters who know you and are prepared to help you is a strength. But when you are able to use this talent consistently to build a network of people who can support you and in a certain directions of your life, then you are using that talent productively, consistently in a particular area. Simply because your ability to connect with people may not make it as a strength if you are not able to utilize it properly in the right direction. Because instant making connection with people may not lead you productively in certain direction if you are not using it in a particular way or build a support network. Rather than this connection can become a source of conflict also. So it depends on how you are refining the talent, are able to use it consistently to build something, then it becomes your strength. So these three terms are kind of connected to each other. So according to Clifton and Anderson, when we talk about knowledge, we are talking about facts and lessons that we learn, whereas skills are basic abilities that we acquire to perform activities. So knowledge is about facts and lessons that we learn, whatever information that we learn. Skills are abilities that we acquire. To perform an activity, we need certain abilities. So those are called as skills. Talents exist naturally within each of us, as we have already said. However, skills and knowledge needs to be learned or acquired. Skills and knowledge are combined with talent to give you a strength. So when the skills and knowledge are combined with talent, then it becomes a strength. So that is the idea behind their conceptualization. So as they have already said, as rough diamonds are naturally found, so talents are also naturally found within a lot of people. Talents are naturally found just like rough diamonds. As rough diamonds are refined and polished with blades and other instruments, strengths are produced when talents are refined with knowledge and skills. So just like we need some instruments to refine those rough diamonds, similarly this rough talents or raw talent has to be refined with knowledge and skills to make them strength, so that you can use them consistently. Because just having a talent doesn't give you necessary ingredient for success in life, because many people waste their talent. So they have a lot of talents but they cannot use them properly. That means they are not able to convert their talent into strengths. So that is where refinement comes into the picture. Now there are 6 principles of human nature and behavior in strength-based approach from this perspective. So they have 6 principles. According to Anderson, there are 6 principles of human nature and behavior. Based on that, they develop this whole framework. One is every human being have a group of talents within you. So everybody has some kind of talents, some kind of abilities people have. Your greatest talents holds the key to high achievement, success and progress at the level of personal excellence. So whatever talents you have, which are greatest, which are the best aspects of your abilities, they are the key to your achievement and success in life or progress in your life, because you can use them to succeed in one's life. Third principle is becoming aware of your talent builds confidence and provides a basis for achievement. The more you become aware of the talents that you have, because many times we are not even aware of a lot of talents that we have. So the more you become aware of the talents, they help you to build confidence and provide further basis for achievement in life. Fourth is learning how to develop and apply strength will improve your levels of achievement. So the more you are able to develop and apply your strength, the more it will improve the chances of your achievement in life. So to what extent you use all these talents and apply them, or apply the strengths, only when you apply them consistently they become strengths. That will be also an important determinant of achievement. Each of your talents can be applied in many areas, including relationship, learning, academics, leadership, service and careers. So talents can be applied in all the diverse areas. Whatever talents you have, it can be applied in all the diverse areas of your life, depending on the specific talents you have. As you develop and apply strengths, your achievement will increase and you will experience greater and more frequent successes. So basically they are again and again saying from these principles that the basis of strength is talent, and obviously the strength, the more you apply them, more you are able to use them in specific areas of life, there are more chances of success in those areas of life. The chances of success increases, because application of strengths and success are very closely connected principles according to this approach. Now, basically from those principles, they are basically deriving certain ideas which says that what are the benefits of developing strengths, why you need to develop strengths. So according to these aspects, Clifton and Anderson said that developing strength will lead to achievements will flow, means more achievement will more likely to happen in your life in whatever dimensions your strengths are, lead to a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. The more you use your strength, more you are likely to experience fulfillment and satisfaction. Use of strength will also enhance the quality of one's life. So overall, the different aspect of your life will increase in terms of personal satisfaction as well as success and achievement and so on. They will also increase confidence and optimism, as we have already said, because the more you use strength, more you are confident that you can be, because strengths are something that you are able to, you are good at it, and use of them increases confidence. Individuals gain more when they expend efforts to build their best talents as compared to when they spend comparable amount of efforts to remedy their weaknesses. So actually we achieve more, or we gain more when we put effort in building strengths and talents as compared to just working on the weaknesses or remove the weaknesses. The benefits of removing weaknesses is less as compared to when you actually work towards developing your talents and strengths. So that is a better approach, because strengths automatically flows out of you and you are more interested in doing them. Weaknesses, we generally don't feel like acknowledging them, or we become defensive about them. We don't get much energy to actually work on them because we are not good at it. So it's not so easy to actually remedy them. On the other hand, when you want to develop your strength, it is much more easier and it naturally flows out of you. That is what they are saying about. Now, as a part of that project, so that is where they were trying to interview thousands of top achievers. So what was the finding of this study? So that was called Gallup study of top achievers. So because they interviewed top achievers from diverse fields and they tried to understand what is happening with them, particularly in the context of strengths and talents. So Clifton and Anderson reported following main findings of top achievers. From interviewing top achievers, they found certain characteristics of these people. These are, number one, top achievers fully recognize their talents and build on them to develop strengths. So one important characteristic they found consistently among these people is that top achievers always they recognize what kind of talent they have, and they don't stop there. They develop those talents into their strengths because they refine them more and more and consistently apply them in their work setting. So this is one thing they found, that top achievers fully recognize their talents and exploit them, use them, build on them in terms of strengths. Second important finding was top achievers apply their greatest talents or strengths in roles that best suit them. Because if you have strength in certain areas and you work in some other areas, it will not be matched in terms of, you will not be able to use your strength to succeed. So top achievers, what they found is that they use those greatest talents or strength they have in the roles that best suit them. So they align their strength with the nature of work. So that is why the strength matches with the work setting and the nature of work. So because of this match, they are able to get success in their work setting. For achievement, it is necessary to apply one's talents and strength in roles and tasks that best suited for those talents. If you have talent and strength in one particular area but working in something else, obviously it will not be match. You will not be able to use the strength that you have in those areas because the nature of work is very different. So that is why top achievers, generally there is a match between their strengths and talents with the kind of work they do. So a proper fit between the talent and the task is essential. This is another important finding they reported. The third finding is top achievers invent ways to apply their greatest talent in their achievement tasks. So they not only convert their talent into strength, they use their strength and apply them and invent newer ways to apply them. So properly exploiting whatever they have. So they will find new ways to use them in different ways, not just typical ways that is required, but they always find newer ways to use them. So that also kind of expands their horizons of achievement and so on. So it is essential to consciously invent newer ways to applying talents in various tasks one performs in a role and position for greater achievement and so on. So these are some of the important findings they summarized from that whole study with interviewing thousands of top achievers. Now let us look at what are the categories of strength they reported from that study. So they, just like the earlier character strength classification, where there were 6 virtues and then there were specific character strength we have discussed in the last lecture. Here also they found 4 broader themes, and then each themes has specific strengths. In total there are 34 strengths or talents which are mostly relevant in the context of work. So this particular perspective is more of work related performance context. This has much more applications, or context is mostly work related context. So according to strength fiber perspective, there are 4 important dimensions of strengths, and each of these dimensions has many further specific strengths. In total there are 34. So the 4 dimensions in this classification is: one is executing, second is influencing, these are all mostly work related context, third is relationship building, fourth is strategic thinking. These 4 dimensions, let us see what comes under each of these very briefly. Now executing is the first category of strength. Under this comes all these specific strengths. So executing is about strengths or talents related to implementing a solution. How do you make things happen? So that's ability is called executing. The ability of executing or implementing a solution, how to make thing happens, is related to executing ability or strengths of executing. This has many specific other strengths which are connected to this particular strengths, broader theme of strength. It includes things like achievement, pursuit of goals, productivity, satisfaction from accomplishment. It includes things like arrangement, organization, coordination, identifying the right combination of people and resources. All these things can be connected to executing. It may also things like belief, having deeply held values, ideas, finding meaning in life. It may also things like consistency, which means equality, fairness, guardianships of right and wrong. Deliberation, good decision making, carefulness, consideration of all options. Discipline, organization, good timekeeping, order and structure. Focus, determining priorities, finding direction, efficiency. Responsibility, person who can be counted on, commitments, honesty, loyalty. Restoration, recognition of problems and ability to fix them and so on. So these are some of the broader other strengths, work related strengths, associated strengths connected to the broader theme of strength called executing. Next is influencing. Under influencing comes many specific strengths. So influencing is about taking charge, speak up, convincing others. It's more related to leadership qualities and other things. To what extent you can take charge and speak and convince other people. That is very important also characteristics in the leadership roles, particularly higher ladder of workplace context and so on. So this may include other particular strengths related to activation, means energy to get things going and done, making things happen by turning thought into action. Command is the ability to deal with conflicts and crises, capacity to be in charge and make decisions. Communication is very important for influencing people, because people get influenced when you are able to talk properly, convince them, and use your language properly. So communication is very important. What ability to explain things, clarification in your explanation, good when talking and presenting. So all these skills are very important in influencing people. Competition, hard work to excel, achievement, desire to win, and so on. This can also be related to this particular theme. Maximization, enhancement of personal and group excellence. You are able to maximize yourself and the group level performance and so on. Self-assurance, it means self-confidence, independence in thinking. Significance is connected to things like high motivation for recognition, hardworking, want to make big impact. The last one is woo, which is connected to things like quickly connecting with people, forming groups, relationship, and so on. So these are some of the specific strengths related to the broader theme of influencing. Relationship building is the third theme under this. Certain specific strengths or talents related to this theme are shown here. So relationship building is about building and nurturing strong relationship. Your ability to build, not only build, but then nurture also. Building relationship doesn't end in terms of relationship building. Your ability to build and as well as nurture and maintain that. So that's called relationship building. Relationship building may include things or strengths related to specific strengths such as adaptability, which includes things like modification of the self depending on the demands of environment, adjustment, flexibility, your ability to adapt to different situations. It includes things like making changes as per the demands of the environment, adjustment, flexibility in approach, and so on. Next is connectedness. It includes things like connecting ideas or occurrences into a meaningful whole. Are you able to connect things to the broader goals of the organizations or whatever workplace setting you are in? Connect small things into broader missions and so on. So that is ability to also help you to connect people and and lead people. Next is development, which includes things like seeing potential in others and assisting them in their development. So relationship building also includes your ability to see potential in other people and help them to excel in those potentials and bring out those potentials. Next comes empathy. Empathy includes understanding and sensing feelings of others, forming supportive relationship. Relationship building is one of the important aspects of relationship building is empathy, your ability to understand others' perspective. That is very important. The more you understand what other people want and how they are looking at the world, one will be able to connect with them and understand their perspective and go along with other people. For relationship building, empathy is very important. The next strength comes harmony, which includes things like ability to find things in common, seek areas of agreement, avoiding conflicts. So the more harmonious orientation you have, the more you are likely to lead groups and people and work in groups and settings harmoniously and collectively and avoiding conflicts. Another is including, the strength of including, which includes has things like helping others to be unified and effective, accepting others, and so on. More you have the capacity of including means more you are to accept differences and include people. Then comes individualization, which includes things like seeing others as individuals and recognizing their talents. Focus on how the different people work together productively and so on. Individualization is about looking at each individual as unique individuals, giving their due respects in terms of their ability, recognizing their talents, and focusing on how all these people can come together and work productively. That's called individualization. Then comes positivity. It includes things like enthusiasm, optimism, excitement, stimulation of others, and so on. Relationship building also needs a lot of positivity to maintain that, which includes things like enthusiasm, optimism, excitement, and so on. The last one is relationship, which itself is a part of that, which means forming close interpersonal relationship, which is main theme of this whole major theme. The last one is called strategic thinking. This is also an important strength theme related to workplace. Strategic thinking is about thinking and analyzing information and situation. The ability to think, analyze information and situations and use it strategically for the benefit of the organization and so on, or whatever workplace work that you are doing. It may include a lot of other strengths and talents. Some of these are, one is analytical thinking, which includes things like understanding of causes and effects, critical thinking and so on. So analytical aspect is about understanding cause, effects, critical thinking, critically analyzing different aspects and use it in the right context. Then comes context. It includes things like seeing historical patterns, perspectives. So seeing context means you have to understand not just whatever you are doing, but the context of whatever you are doing. Historically, how things have come up about the patterns and use those patterns, historical patterns, and to move ahead in future and so on. Then comes futuristic. It includes things like focus on the future, seeing possibilities, organizing others. Futuristic thinking is also very important. For making strategy, you have to think about futures, not just in the present context, how your decisions and steps will lead to future impact and so on. Then comes ideation. It includes things like creativity, originality, new ideas and concepts. So ideation is more about creativity, bringing new things, originality and so on. This strength is very important in the workplace context. Then comes input, which is about active knowledge acquisition, curiosity. Input is about your curiosity, seeking more knowledge and information so that you act better or more efficiently. Then comes intellection, which includes things like multiple directions of thinking, intellectual discussion, solutions. It is more about intellectually stimulating yourself and including in the intellectual discussions and solutions and so on. Learning is about enjoying learning process, focus on improvement and so on. So enjoyment of learning things and focus on improvement and so on. So more learning oriented approach is a strength related to strategic thinking. The last one is strategy, which is about seeing pros and cons and the whole picture, generating appropriate plan of actions. So these are some of the strengths which are related to strategic thinking. So in total, if you combine all the four themes and the different strength associated each of these things, there will be 34 strengths which are relevant in the workplace context. So this is the whole classification system. Then the more important applied question is how to develop those strengths, because these are important. They can be developed and mostly relevant in the performance workplace context. Can we develop them? So Clifton and Anderson actually provided specific strategies for developing these strengths. The first important thing to develop this strength is about know your talent. So that is something very important. You cannot develop a strength without knowing the talents related to that. So talent is something that is already there within you. You have to recognize that it is there, then only you can build it. So that recognition is the first step. So to know your talent, to develop strength, we need first to identify whatever the greatest talent we have. How can we identify that? Talents can be identified by different patterns within all of us. One is spontaneous reaction, yearnings, rapid learning, and satisfaction. So basically they are saying some of the indicators that how do you know you have certain talent? How can we know that? So these are some of the indicators. What are those indicators? Number one is spontaneous reaction. What is spontaneous reaction? These are like subconscious spontaneous reaction to a given situation. So many times we learn that we have certain talents when based on how we react to different situations in life. Sometimes very spontaneously, subconsciously we react to a given situation and we realize that I am good at these things. I have natural talent and inclination towards these things spontaneously. So naturally, if let's say somebody just sits and start drawing something, then they realize that they can draw very generally they are able to understand the whole painting process very easily and spontaneously. They are understanding all these processes. then naturally this from the spontaneous reaction in some of the situations of their life, they can understand that I have certain talents towards this particular task or things. So many times our reaction patterns while we face different situations in life gives an indication that you are good at what and you are not good at what. So kind of, that kind of reaction sometimes tells us. Then comes yearnings. These are like passions for some activities and hobbies. If you are very passionate about something, some activities or some hobbies, then this is also a reflection that you have talents regarding those things. Because passion develops when you have certain strengths and talents or you are good at something. So that will be also an indicator of your talent. Rapid learning is an area that also reflects talent. If you are able to learn something very quickly, it's an indication that you have a talent in those areas. So if a student can learn a particular subject very quickly, understand all the nitty-gritties of a subject, that means he has talent in those areas. Let's say mathematics, some people are very quickly they learn maths. So that means they have a talent in those areas. So rapid learning could be an indicator of talents. Then comes satisfaction and enjoyment of activities also reflects a possible talent in an area. When you find a lot of satisfaction in doing something or some kind of activities, you enjoy doing them, that means it reflects that you have talent in those areas. Because you are good at it only, you will enjoy something when you are good at it, or you simply, there is an intrinsic motivation to do something, then only people enjoy those things and find satisfaction. So these are some of the indicators by which we can understand whether we have certain talents or not from all these behavioral patterns. So this is how we can recognize. So recognition is very important. Other ways of recognizing is that there are structured questionnaire available. One is like strengthfinder questionnaire. One can use those questionnaire and reflect on the items, and then the scores will give you an idea of that can help you to identify what strengths or talents you have. We can also understand or identify talents by self-reflection on thoughts and behavior can give insight also. Sometimes by reflecting on ourselves, what we do and seeing patterns, that can also give us certain indication of certain talents in our areas. So this is one important thing to develop strength. First we need to identify or know what talents we have. These are some of the possibilities by which we can know. Second is to develop strength, you must value your talent. This is very important, and assume responsibility of using them in strength development. Now many people have many talents, but they don't value them. They don't recognize the importance of it. So that then those are like wasted talent. So to build strength out of talent, one has to value those talents and assume responsibility for using them. Use them more and more and consistently. So until unless you give value of a talent, it cannot become a strength. So one need to invest time, energy, resources for developing strength. It will not happen automatically. So this will happen only when you value your talent. If you don't give value, obviously this will be a wasted talent. It will not become your strength. Third important factors in developing strength is that talents are most powerful when inspired by personal missions. When you use your talent for some personal mission, they become very strong and they quickly get converted into strengths. So the use of talents are used towards a mission, whatever you want to, certain purpose in life, purpose and meaning of your life, it will energize those talents and it will motivate to develop and refine those talents into strength. When you work in a mission mode way and you see certain purpose and meaning in doing something and they are backed by those talents, they will immediately get converted into strength very quickly because they will be highly energized because you have a mission to fulfill. So without mission and purpose in life, one may not have enough motivation to develop those talents into strengths. So if you develop certain missions around whatever talents you have, they are more likely to get converted into strengths. 4 is healthy caring relationship facilitates development of strength. So our connection with other people around us in our life can also facilitate whether talent becomes strength or not. How that can happen? For example, having few healthy, positive and empowering relationship facilitates development of strengths. So other people can contribute to the development of strengths or converting talent into strengths in our life, this may inspire to develop our strengths. You are more likely to talk about your talents when, for example, if you have other supportive people around us, if you have certain talents and strengths, obviously you will have more chances to express them, talk about them, get feedback from them, express about your experiences and plans to develop talents. You can express and talk about your experiences and plan to develop those things, and others can also give you feedback, receive feedback, work together to form an expectation about talents, where to apply and how to develop them. So in all these processes, other people's support can also help you a lot in terms of giving you feedback, whether you are doing right or not, expressing your doubts, your talk about it and so on. All this can facilitate in terms of developing talents into strengths. So healthy caring relationship can also facilitate it. Fifth is relieve your successes helps you develop strength. What does that mean is success generally comes with the use of our talents. Therefore, relieve them means visit them again and again, whatever successes you had using them, helps you to recognize your talents and give confidence in using and building them. So if you have got certain successes using your talents and so on, so relieving them, remembering them, how they have helped you to succeed and so on, can give you more confidence to use them more in the future. So reliving them means again remembering them and seeing how they have helped you, can help you to recognize that this talent has helped me earlier also, and can give confidence in using them and building them in the future also. The last one is practice your talent. So this is something, the most important thing is there is no alternative to practice when we want to develop strengths. So more you use them, talent, practice them, the more it will develop. So there is no alternative for practice and hard work in this direction, or for that any matter, to develop anything. So these are some of the things that are related to Gallup Strength Finder, or which is also called Clifton Strength Finder. So we have discussed about all this classification system and how we can develop them. So with this I stop here. So this is the first part of this lecture. So we'll be talking about some other strength perspective in the next part of this lecture. So with this I stop here. Thank you.